Hello Midnights. Thank you for tuning in. Up next, the Black-Eyed Children, a modern urban legend. Let us know where you are listening from and don't forget to subscribe. The landscape of modern folklore is vast and ever-evolving, yet few contemporary urban legends have permeated the collective consciousness with the chilling persistence of the Black-Eyed Children, BEC. Far from the ancient tales of cryptids or the spectral figures of traditional ghost stories, the Beck myth presents a distinctly modern horror, rooted in unsettling encounters that defy conventional explanation and tap into deep-seated human anxieties. This essay delves into the profound psychological and sociological underpinnings of the Beck phenomenon, exploring its origins, characteristics, and the disquieting resonance it finds in an increasingly interconnected and uncertain world. At its core, the Black-Eyed Children myth describes encounters with pre-adolescent children, typically between 6 and 16 years old. These encounters predominantly occur at one's doorstep, vehicle window, especially in cars parked in isolated areas or stopped on remote roads, or in secluded, liminal spaces that offer minimal witnesses or easy escape. They are almost invariably reported late at night or during twilight hours, when darkness provides cover and isolation amplifies vulnerability. Their distinguishing feature, and the source of their chilling notoriety, is their eyes, described as entirely black, devoid of iris or pupil, possessing an unnerving, vacant depth. These children often request entry, a ride, or some form of assistance, always with an unsettling sense of urgency or an oddly flat, monotonic tone. Witnesses consistently report an overwhelming feeling of dread, a primal instinct to deny their requests, and an intense sensation of being in the presence of something profoundly unnatural or malevolent. The accounts are strikingly consistent across various narratives, lending an eerie uniformity to the amorphous terror they represent. The precise genesis of the Beck myth is difficult to pinpoint, a common characteristic of orally transmitted folklore in the digital age. While the phenomenon largely gained traction in the late 1990s, some researchers and enthusiasts suggest that isolated, similar accounts may have existed informally before its widespread popularization. These earlier whispers, if they occurred, would have lacked the amplifying mechanism that the burgeoning internet was about to provide. The pivotal moment for the Beck myth is widely attributed to Brian Bethel's 1998 post on a ghost-related mailing list, alt.folklore.ghosts. Bethel, a Texas journalist, recounted two separate, unsettling encounters. The first, and arguably most iconic, involved two young boys approaching his car in the secluded area, requesting a ride home so they could retrieve money for a movie ticket. Bethel described a burgeoning sense of terror, an overwhelming urge to flee, and the chilling reveal of their completely black eyes when he hesitated. The second encounter involved similar children appearing at his home's doorstep. His detailed, first-person narrative was compelling, tapping into primal fears. The timing of Bethel's post was crucial. The late 1990s marked the rapid expansion of the internet beyond academic and military circles into mainstream homes. Early online platforms like Usenet groups, dedicated paranormal forums, and rudimentary websites served as fertile ground for the story to spread. Unlike traditional folklore, which relies on word of mouth or print media, the internet allowed for instant, global dissemination. The anonymity and interconnectedness of these early digital communities facilitated rapid sharing, adaptation, and collective validation of the narrative. Users could share their own experiences, or simply retell Bethel's, adding new layers of detail and fear. This digital birth gave the myth a unique fluidity, allowing it to adapt and evolve rapidly while maintaining its core, terrifying premise. Over time, elements such as the children's insistence on being invited inside, a classic vampiric/demonic trope, and the overwhelming feeling of dread experienced by witnesses became standardized features, amplified and refined through countless retellings and forum discussions. The very act of reading these chilling tales in the isolation of one's own home, often late at night, only amplified the psychological impact, blurring the lines between digital narrative and potential reality. Beyond the core characteristics, several other consistent details frequently emerge in Beck narratives, adding to their unsettling verisimilitude. While their eyes are the most striking feature, their overall outward appearance often contributes to the sense of unease. They are typically described as unremarkably average in build and height for their purported age, often appearing somewhat thin or frail, yet lacking the natural awkwardness or fidgeting of typical children. Their skin tone is frequently mentioned as being unusually pale or sallow, sometimes appearing almost translucent, contributing to a sickly or unnaturally pristine look. Hair color varies, but it is often described as dark and neatly combed, or perhaps surprisingly unkempt, depending on the specific account, though rarely bright or vibrant. Their clothing is sometimes described as being slightly out of time or nondescript, perhaps old-fashioned or ill-fitting. but always remarkably clean or unblemished despite circumstances like heavy rain or dirt roads. This incongruity, a clean appearance amidst a storm, or dated clothing, adds to their unsettling aura of not quite belonging to the present world. The children often speak with a precocious vocabulary or an unnervingly formal tone for their age, further contributing to the uncanny valley effect. Their requests, while seemingly innocuous, a phone call, a ride, entry to escape the cold, carry an intense, almost hypnotic urgency, making refusal feel incredibly difficult, yet absolutely necessary. Some accounts mention a strange silence surrounding their presence, as if the ambient sounds of the night, wind, distant traffic, animal noises, are suddenly muffled or absent. Furthermore, a common detail is their apparent inability to enter a private dwelling or vehicle without explicit permission, reinforcing theories that they operate under some form of supernatural constraint, similar to folkloric vampires who cannot cross a threshold uninvited. This detail subtly shifts the moral dilemma for the witness. It's not just about denying a child, but resisting a compelling, unseen force that seeks complicity. Witnesses often report a feeling of time distortion during the encounter, as if the moments stretched into an eternity, or a sense of immense mental pressure compelling them to comply. These subtle, yet consistent, elements contribute significantly to the myth's psychological impact, creating a portrait of an entity that is both superficially human and profoundly alien. Crucially, the myth remains deliberately vague about what the children are up to or what happens if their request for entry is granted. This ambiguity is a key component of their horror. While their immediate objective seems to be gaining access to a private space, a home or a car, their ultimate purpose is almost universally perceived as malevolent or dangerous to the witness, rather than simply mischievous or benevolent. The overwhelming consensus among those who believe in or perpetuate the myth is that the black-eyed children are fundamentally evil or possess malicious intent. Their seemingly innocent facade is a deceptive lure, and their need for an invitation implies a violation of free will, a required complicity for their nefarious agenda. The consequences of inviting the black-eyed children in are never explicitly detailed in a consistent manner across narratives, but are universally implied to be catastrophic. Accounts that feature compliance are rare and often deliberately cut short, leaving the most chilling outcomes to the reader's imagination. This narrative choice intensifies the dread far more effectively than any explicit description of harm. However, the implied consequences range from sudden, unexplained illness or death. Witnesses or their loved ones might fall ill or die shortly after the encounter. Persistent misfortune or psychological torment, a life plagued by bad luck, accidents, or an unending sense of being haunted, including severe paranoia, night terrors, and intrusive thoughts. Abduction or disappearance, the children, or the witness, might vanish without a trace. Demonic possession or spiritual corruption, the Beck are sometimes linked to entities that seek to control or corrupt the human soul. Loss of sanity or profound mental degradation, the sheer terror and unnaturalness of the encounter could permanently break a person's mind. This lack of a clear, defined agenda for the Beck intensifies the fear, as the unknown consequences are often more terrifying than a concrete threat. Some interpretations suggest they drain energy, steal souls, or merely serve as harbingers of misfortune or death, but no single consensus exists. The true terror lies in the chilling implication that their presence itself is the precursor to something deeply disturbing and perhaps irreversible, leaving the witness to ponder the terrifying what-if long after the encounter is over. Furthermore, even witnesses who successfully deny entry often report lingering psychological effects, such as intense paranoia, recurring nightmares, or a persistent sense of being watched, suggesting that the encounter itself leaves an indelible mark. The question of where these children come from and why they appear in specific locations is perhaps the most tantalizing and elusive aspect of the myth, leading to a myriad of speculative theories within the paranormal community and beyond. No definitive answer exists, and it is precisely this lack of concrete origin that allows the legend to tap into a wide spectrum of human fears. Encounters with Beck are almost exclusively reported in settings that enhance the vulnerability and isolation of the witness. Remote roads, often at night, provide a perfect stage for a car encounter, where the driver is alone and the Beck can appear suddenly from the darkness. Similarly, isolated homes or cabins, particularly in rural or suburban areas, become targets for doorstep appearances, where the witness is likely alone and feels the sanctity of their private space threatened. The late hours of the night or early morning are consistently cited as the prime time for these appearances, capitalizing on the psychological impact of sleep disruption and heightened sensory perception in darkness. The choice of these locations and timings appears deliberate, maximizing the element of surprise and minimizing the chance of intervention or witnesses. This strategy suggests an entity that understands human psychology and seeks to leverage fear and isolation. The why behind their appearance in these specific settings is often linked to their perceived objective, to gain entry, which is easier when the potential victim is alone and disoriented. One prominent theory posits that the Beck are a type of extradimensional or extraterrestrial being. Their unnatural eyes and strange demeanor are interpreted as a disguise, a clumsy attempt to mimic human form, with the invitation clause being a limitation of their alien physiology or rules for interacting with our dimension. This aligns with broader UFO and alien abduction narratives, suggesting they are scouting or subtly infiltrating human society, perhaps drawn to areas of low population density for stealth. Another popular interpretation links them to supernatural entities, such as demons or vampiric creatures. Their need for an invitation to cross a threshold is a classic trope associated with these types of beings in folklore, implying they are malevolent spirits seeking to gain power or prey on unsuspecting victims. The overwhelming dread reported by witnesses is seen as an instinctual reaction to a truly evil presence. Their appearance in isolated areas might be due to a preference for places where their anomalous nature is less likely to be observed or challenged. Some theories venture into the realm of thought forms or telepaths. In this psychological/spiritual interpretation, the collective fear, belief, and repeated telling of the Beck stories could, over time, manifest these entities into a quasi-real existence. They are, in essence, horrors willed into being by the human psyche, reflecting our anxieties back at us. If this is the case, they would appear wherever the collective consciousness projects them most intensely. More skeptical, yet equally compelling, explanations focus on the mundane or psychological. These interpretations suggest that Beck encounters could be misinterpretations of ordinary events, perhaps children with unusual eye conditions, though none perfectly match the all-black description, or individuals engaging in elaborate hoaxes. Psychological phenomena, such as sleep paralysis, hypnagogic hallucinations occurring during the transition into or out of sleep, or even the power of suggestion and mass hysteria within online communities, are also considered. In these cases, the brain, primed by the widely circulated myth, could fill in the terrifying details during a liminal state or under heightened emotional stress. The pervasive nature of the black-eyed children myth in contemporary culture extends beyond anecdotal accounts and online forums, finding a significant foothold in popular entertainment. The inherent creepiness of children with entirely black eyes, combined with their unsettling requests, makes for compelling horror narratives. Several films, documentaries, and television series have directly or indirectly drawn upon the Beck legend, further solidifying its place in modern scary lore. Examples include the 2012 film Black-Eyed Kids, which received crowdfunding, and other titles like Black-Eyed Children, Let Me In, 2015, which explores the phenomenon through a found footage style, and Let Us In, 2021, a horror film directly based on the urban legend. Documentaries and paranormal investigation shows frequently feature segments on Beck sightings, often interviewing alleged witnesses and cryptozoologists, lending a veneer of reality to the tales. This adaptation into visual media allows the myth to reach even wider audiences, translating the chilling atmosphere of the written accounts into a tangible, albeit fictionalized, experience, thereby perpetuating and evolving the legend through shared cultural consumption. What makes the black-eyed children so profoundly unsettling? Their horror lies not in overt monstrousness but in a subtle, insidious subversion of innocence. Children, universally perceived as symbols of purity, vulnerability, and hope, are here transformed into harbingers of dread. Their age and apparent helplessness exploit our innate human instinct to assist those in need, creating a moral dilemma for the witness. To deny a child aid feels wrong, yet to grant it feels catastrophically dangerous. The entirely black eyes serve as a stark visual metaphor for a complete absence of soul, humanity, or empathy, reflecting a void that resonates with our deepest fears of the unknown and the inhuman. This visual anomaly is often coupled with an unnerving politeness or a strange persistence, further highlighting the uncanny valley effect. They look human, but something is fundamentally, terrifyingly wrong. The overwhelming feeling of dread is not just fear, it's a profound, instinctual recoil from something deeply unnatural, an innate warning system screaming for self-preservation against an existential threat that defies logic. From a psychological perspective, the Beck myth taps into several potent anxieties. Firstly, there's the fear of the uncanny, something familiar made strange and unsettling. The children are almost normal, but the eyes disrupt this normalcy, triggering a profound sense of unease. Secondly, it plays on our vulnerability in our own homes or private spaces. The doorstep encounter represents an invasion of the safe haven, a breach of personal sanctuary by an insidious external force. Thirdly, the inherent ambiguity of the threat allows for projection. Without a clear explanation for their nature, the mind is free to conjure its most terrifying possibilities, often reflecting contemporary cultural fears. Sociologically, the Beck phenomenon can be interpreted as a modern allegory for societal anxieties. In an era of increasing concerns about child exploitation, stranger danger, and the pervasive fear of the other, the Beck myth provides a chilling narrative framework. The children's attempts to gain entry can be seen as a metaphor for the erosion of personal boundaries and the infiltration of malicious intent into seemingly safe spaces, reflecting a broader societal anxiety about loss of control and privacy in an increasingly interconnected world. The notion of seemingly innocent figures harboring sinister intentions might also speak to a growing cynicism towards traditional sources of trust, even childhood itself, in an age saturated with information and misinformation. Their requests for assistance, masking a deeper, sinister motive, might speak to a subconscious fear of deception and manipulation. Furthermore, the myth spread through online platforms highlights the power of shared digital narratives in shaping collective anxieties and creating new forms of community around shared fears, often with little factual basis, yet immense psychological impact. In conclusion, the black-eyed children myth is more than just a fleeting internet creepypasta. It is a profound modern urban legend that continues to captivate and terrify due to its deep resonance with fundamental human fears. By subverting the archetype of childhood innocence and projecting a chilling, unexplainable malevolence, the Beck embody anxieties about the uncanny, the invasion of personal space, and the insidious nature of the unknown. As long as these primal fears persist, and as long as the digital realm provides fertile ground for shared narratives of dread, the unsettling enigma of the black-eyed children will continue to knock, metaphorically, at the doors of our collective imagination. The only remaining question is, if they were to knock on your door, would you dare to invite them in?